You know, as the dad, you want to fix things. And so when we really all along, and I'm really personally pretty terrible when it comes to injuries with the kids, cuts, bruises, everything. I just want it to get better immediately. And so when we found out about Louis' eyes, you know, the first question was, when do we come back? What do we do? What do we take? Who do we see? And when the answer was nothing and nobody for all of that, it was a little disconcerting. You know, you find yourself searching for a second opinion, which is just plain makes sense. And then after that, when the second opinion is close to the same as the first opinion, then you we found ourselves searching for a way to, since there isn't a treatment or a cure, what can we do to make that happen? And that's how we found the Foundation Fighting Blindness. I'm not a super angry kind of a guy, but I would say maybe in the first month when we found out about it, there was a bit of anger. Like, why me? Why now? This is crazy. But it was so left field. I mean, I just had no... He had 2 days of tests, and we knew something was up after when we were called back for a second day of tests. But really, blindness really had nothing. That didn't register in our brains at all. I was thinking cancer, something like that. Already looking up online what's going on, but blindness really didn't come to play. And then I guess in that first month also, those months before we got a second opinion, a little angry that, come on, really? This hasn't been solved? There's nothing at all we can do? That seems just crazy to me. Following his lead has probably been the best way to cope and deal with his vision loss across the board. It's easy for those of us who can see everything close to perfectly to think how horrible it would be to lose your sight. And Louis is pretty quick to tell me that, you know, it's really all he's ever known, and he can see a lot. He doesn't really feel like he's missing out on too much. So while I would like to change all of that, and I feel like I'm actively doing what I can to do that, it makes the whole situation, I guess, easier to some degree to deal with and live with. He is running the show, and we follow his lead. I think there was one day in the last 7 years where I've seen him frustrated. And that's not so bad. One day in 7 years, he came home from third grade and said, first day of school, said, Mom and Dad, I think I want to be homeschooled. And that was really hard. And then he said, I know how you guys feel about homeschooling and that's not okay, but this is getting hard. And so we sat down and we had a long conversation about it, and that's when we decided that, you know what, we'll just come in, tell all the kids about what's going on with Louis. He was starting to have equipment in the classroom and some other things, and it was pretty obvious that he was different than the other kids. And no one was picking on him or anything, but I think he just wanted to avoid it altogether. We had a long conversation with him that night in Carmela, and he went back to school the next day, and then we talked to him really every day for the next several weeks, and we all agreed that he was in the best situation he could be in, and that was his only day of frustration in 7 years that I've seen. I mean, everything from, you know, when we go down to the University of Iowa, they put electrodes right on his eyeballs for an hour and a half. Looks like a scene out of Clockwork Orange. I say, Louis, what does that feel like? It must be horrible. Well, Dad, it just feels like they jammed plastic under my eyelids. You know, he doesn't get frustrated by it. They're poking his eyes, you know, for 8 hours and doing all kinds of things. And he doesn't get too frustrated. Even when he was 5 or 6, you know, it's long to sit at a hospital for 8 hours getting tests. But both kids, thankfully, see it as a bit of a vacation. We go down, stay overnight in a hotel, get to go swimming. They think that's fun. I don't know how long that'll last, but I'll take it. I don't know about loss of control so much as just the ability to change it. I just have no ability to change his situation other than to help him navigate through it all. And so those times are tough. You know, his friends are, this is a big baseball neighborhood. His friends are into baseball. He can't play small ball sports. So that doesn't seem to frustrate him, but there are times when I think, gee, it'd be great if he could go out and play baseball with every other kid. This is a hockey state. I'm actually glad he doesn't play hockey, but even watching hockey is particularly difficult because it's hard to follow the puck. So there are some things that are a little bit problematic. I would say 99% of his day in life, we figured out ways to together to do whatever it is he wants to do. And generally speaking, there's been very little that he hasn't been able to hit head on and accomplish. Hope is everything. It's all we have. I mean, there was a time between when he was first diagnosed and when we got the second opinion in Iowa where we were told there is no hope and there is nothing. And that was, those were probably the worst months of my life. And, now it's all changed. And I feel pretty strongly we get a good straight talk from his doctor in Iowa who's really up on all the latest research and what's going on. And then we get regular updates from the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And I'm absolutely certain that it will be cured. It seems like a crazy disease because it seems just so easy to fix to me. It's a bunch of gunk inside your eyes because it can't get cleaned out by a protein, and all it has to do is get out of there. How hard can that be? Come on. The truth about that is these are, I guess, what they call orphan diseases or relatively rare diseases. And so there's just not enough money in it for pharmaceutical companies to do the research, to figure this stuff out and to come up with the cures. And so that's why it's so important to have the Foundation Fighting Blindness funding the research as its own entity so that we can push these cures along so that the future for Louis is different than it has been for others. There are about 8 or 10 clinical trials underway, for the most part funded by the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And what we need is your money to help those continue and to get more of those going, because those are super promising. And it looks to me like you could be a part of solving Louis' vision disease in the very near future by giving some of your money. I look forward to that day, and I hope that when and if he has children in the future, he can see the expressions on their face like I can on my kid's face. And it's really those particular moments, I guess I can put myself in his shoes, but not a hospital room or the day that it happens, but more specific to moments. Seeing both my kids water ski for the first time, I want him to be able to see his kids doing the same thing, because there's an excitement around those first time events and actually seeing them happen. And then on the more mundane, I get tired of hearing. I'm glad he says it, and I know why he says it. But we're driving down the road, and somebody points out a billboard or something on the side of the road, and he says, "Yeah," and he laughs, and I know he can't see it at all, and I can't wait for him to actually say "yeah" and react when it's real. Blindness is a thing that freaks people out. Wish it didn't, but I'll just be honest, it freaks me out. It did certainly before. We see people with cane walking on the street, and emotion and thoughts just flood through your mind. He's very aware of that, and the word blindness is a scary word. When people talk about losing their senses, blindness is always among the worst things that could happen to people, as people think. And so just getting people to understand even what blindness is. Before Louis, I was really like most people, and I thought blindness was blackness. And it's not. It's not like that for most people who are blind. And really understanding the shades of gray in between is very difficult. And with a kid like Louis, he's super active, so it's easy to forget. It's easy as a parent to forget. It's easy as his teachers to forget and as his friends to forget, because he does well in most everything, and the things he doesn't do well, he fakes well. So it's easy to just overlook and forget. And he doesn't like to have to explain it in the few times when you really have to. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to one of his substitute teachers at school, and I said, how is he doing, and how did he do in religion today? Well, we just read the whole time. I said, how did he do? Well, he just sat there and read. I said, no, actually he didn't. He was just faking it. He can't read a word on a page. So it's just a constant reminder. He'll just sit there and hold the book, and he'll even switch pages, make it look like he's reading. I had a friend tell me early on he had had some family tragedy with his kids, and he said there's going to be a bunch of people who ask you, "How is Louis doing?" And some people just want to hear "fine." You're just going to have to get over it and tell them "fine." Some people are truly concerned and want to hear whatever it is that's going on, but you have to determine which are which, because the people who want to hear just "fine" um, aren't going to be open to really hearing anything else. And it's not going to be all the people you think. There's going to be family members who ask you, "How's he doing?" and they just want to hear "fine." And so just stick to that. It was hard. That was probably a hard pill to swallow, and it was honest advice, and I've seen it play out many times in the last 7 years. And I get asked often how Louis is doing, and I think now I'm pretty good at perceiving who's asking me and what they really want to hear. If they're open to hearing exactly what's going on, or if they just want to hear "fine." It's helpful, extremely helpful for me to share with other people exactly what I feel and what it's like, and getting support back that says you're not crazy to be letting him do these things, and at the same time be careful and make sure you're doing this and this. But really, that communication. I would say our family is a family of extroverts, me included, and so really I get validation and help by talking to other people about it. You cannot fix it, but switching your focus from fixing this horrible disease to living with it and dealing with it and enjoying life in spite of it, I think is really the best place to be. And then, of course, getting active and helping those who can probably fix it. So there's teams of researchers out there who really have what it takes to solve this. And it's within their grasp, and so really pushing that angle, and then spending time with their child to help them figure out how they're going to make it in this world, and set your fears aside. The hardest thing as a parent, especially for me, is setting my fears aside. Really, before Louis had this disease, I'm a nervous Nelly kind of a dad, and stomaching taking my son rock climbing because I'm scared of heights, and he can't see the bottom anyway, so it doesn't bother him at all. And then water skiing, telling my brother not to ram him into a dock because he can't see the docks, and be very careful. And snow skiing, those are all nerve-wracking things, but we can't hold him back. I mean, he is a kid, first and foremost. He will get hurt. And maybe even more than other kids, he might get hurt. But keeping him as protected as you can while still allowing him to experience life, that's sort of the fine line that we're looking to walk.